Sophie swiveled to the door, but the screams following her jumped off, reforming into a fixed spike before they bolted the doors to the chamber from inside. Sophie cowered against the wall, chattered. Trust the crystal, she told herself. Ryan would win in the end. And yet, he was losing now. Should she help? Should she stay put? Had she missed something in the crystal scenes? But she didn't have the crystal to look at anymore. Nor did Evelyn's just intervene, suddenly dormant, as if it had never been alive at all. Japheth seized the advantage, the king too weak to fend off his brother's assault. The snake savaged him with a punch to the eye, swelling Ryan's face beyond recognition, sending the king crumbling to the ground, his crown knocked off his head. Japheth stood up, breathing heavily, covered in blood. Then his eyes went to Sophie. He plodded towards her. Sophie blanched. This wasn't in the crystal. This wasn't in the script. Ryan snapped his twin by the ankle and pulled him to the ground. The king scrapped to his feet and kicked his brother in the face, harder, until the snake wasn't moving. Ryan wheeled to Sophie, mastered with blood. I told you to leave. I told you. He whispered, staggering towards her. He reached around the palm and touched the wet blood on her cheek, her blood mixing with his. Now look what you have done. He started, his arm still in the air, because his hand was repairing before his and Sophie's eyes. Sophie's blood slicked along the lines of Ryan's palm, magically sealing up the open cuts, restoring his tan, perfect flesh. Her blood was healing him, the same way her blood had healed Japheth. Slowly, Ryan and Sophie met eyes, both shell-shocked. Well, said a glacial voice behind them. Sophie and Ryan turned as Japheth rose from the ground, his face as bloodied as his brother's, his hair matted tight against his skull, the snake and Excalibur in one hand. With the other, he reached up and placed the Camelot's crown on his head. The pen said one of us would be king, the other healed by her blood. The snake spoke, leering at his brother. But it's never said which of us would wear the crown. It's never said the elder. 2 brothers, 2 possible kings. And yet, I let you to be king, not because I thought you deserved the crown, but because you promised me a wish. You promised me to bring the one person I loved, a love that is worth more to me than a crown. Ironic, isn't it? The good brother wishes for power. The evil brother wishes for love. But that was the deal we made, bonded by a promise you no longer are willing to keep. So I promise a new deal. You can be the one healed by your new love's blood, and I'll be the king. A king with the power to fulfill your promise myself. Japheth's black suit of screams morphed into Ryan's blue and gold suit, the king's suit. One of the newly gilded screams flew off Japheth and, like a paintbrush, magically swept across Ryan and turned Ryan's suit gold and blue, Japheth's old leech suit. The snake grinned. I like this arrangement better. Ryan charged at him, ramming his head into Japheth's chest, spraying the king's crown into the wall and Excalibur onto the bed. The twins grappled for the sword, blood obscuring their faces as the snake magically transformed their suits from blue to gold, gold to blue, back and forth, until Sophie couldn't tell who was who anymore. "Who's the king? Who's the king?" Japheth chanted, their suits changing faster, their blood-covered hands stringing for Excalibur. Closer, closer. Sophie suddenly questioned what she had seen in the crystal. Two brothers dead, herself still standing. Had it been the truth, the real future, or had it been a crystal of mind, a script of wishful thinking? She couldn't leave it to chance, which was themselves. Lunging out of the corner, she dove for the sword. The king threw her out of the way. His blue and gold suit spattered the world. Sophie rebounded, but she was too late. Ryan swiped the heat into one hand, double fisting with the other. His blade swung through the air, the edge catching the light like a sun flare. It impaled Japheth's chest, clean through the heart. Japheth closed his eyes in shock, stumbling backwards, his face slick with blood. Ryan drew the sword out of his brother's fell. Sophie put a hand to her mouth, watching the scenes play out as it had in the crystal. Only this time it was real, the smell of blood and sweat suffocating her. Ryan kneeled over Japheth's body, watching his twin take his last breath. The king bowed his head, holding the snake's corpse. Excalibur lay abandoned behind him. Ryan didn't see Sophie move from the corner. The fear was gone from her face, replaced with intent. She picked up the sword, her slippered feet creeping along the carpet. Without a sound, she raised the sword over Ryan's back. Then she froze. Ryan was crying, sobbing, like a little boy, crying for his dead brother, crying for his other half. Something in Sophie's heart stirred. A blonde of blood she understood. "Ryan," she whispered. He didn't look at her. "You can bring him back," Sophie blinked. "You can use the pen. You can bring him back to life." His sobs went softer. "Ryan." Then his cries changed, louder, wilder, peering through the silent room, until Sophie realized that they weren't cries at all. They were laughs. He turned around, his blue eyes slashing through her. As he stood, he wiped the blood off his face, revealing his milk-white skin. A scream caught in Sophie's throat. "Not Ryan," she choked it. "Not Ryan. Not Ryan." "Oh," said the snake.